Hey up, how's dough? How you doing? Welcome back to the channel. So this is episode 3 of my 4 or 5. Today we're going to be talking about this magical stuff, ambrosia, and that's food for the gods. What's the drink for the gods? Nectar? Yeah, maybe nectar. Crikey. So part 3, we're going to be talking about ink. Now ink is a road less travelled, as I often say, but it is wonderful for skies. So much fun. In some ways it takes a lot of the pressure off because you're not selecting colours, you're not mixing colours, you're not dealing with a lot of granulation. And you can get an awful lot of bang for your buck with ink. You're getting a lot of special effects. If you put water in there, it does amazing things. You get chromatic inks, shimmer inks. It's great. But we'll be covering the basics today. Join me for some inky goodness. Let's get cracking. What I'm going to try and show you in this video is a little bit about perspective. Now, as clouds get further away, they generally tend to get smaller. Here's some small clouds that are far away. And then in the middle distance, they'll become slightly bigger. And then up here, not only are they larger still, but you tend to see the underneath of them more because they'll be above your head. So the shadow under a cloud, not that we'll be doing much on shadows right now. And then obviously the shadows on those will be thin because you're looking at them almost from the side. So that's a way of injecting a little bit of science into your clouds. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use ink and I'm going to try and recreate that idea here. So we're going to go lighter at the bottom and then darker at the top. So very similar to doing a wash with watercolour. And then I'm going to go into this darker ink here. This is really quite dark, this ink. There we go. And I'm going to push some of that dye across there. Now, let me just clean that up. Obviously, ink is dye-based. I've talked about this before. Watercolour is a pigment, which means it's bits of solid mixed into a liquid, whereas ink is dye. So actually, it does work a little bit like watercolour in the sense that the more you put on, the more it dyes the fabric of the paper. So this now is, I'm going to dry that brush, dry that off there just with a bit of tissue. I'm not going to put any clean on it, but I'm just going to go across now and smooth in that gradient a bit. There we go. Now what I'm going to do now is purposefully introduce some clean water in puddles to create backgrounds, or some people call them cauliflowers. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'll start here and I'll drop that water in there. Again, add a bit more in. Now, what that does is it sort of floats the ink onto the surface. So just carefully now, I'm going to go in with the tissue and I'm going to lift off a tiny bit of that there. And then I'm going to do the same here. And put some water in here. And then I'm gonna, this time I'm just gonna use a dry brush. So I'm drying the brush on the tissue and I'm gonna pull off some of the dye. Just make sure that's focused okay. Right, there's a bit of fluff there that I need to get rid of. Get off. Right, and we've got a little bit in here that I could remove. Fluff keeps coming back. So again, a clean brush, and again I'm going to dab a bit more on. And then again pull off a little bit of that. And you can do the same with the smaller brush here. If you use that small brush and just introduce some some elements here, and that is again going to make a bit of a back run. Now this is an effect, it's not hugely sort of noticeable really. It's quite subtle, certainly with this ink anyway, but it can be a lot more dramatic with, again I'm just going to use a bit of tissue to lighten some of these areas. Again, scrunching the tissue ever so slightly. If you scrunch it up like this and then go in and just, you can pull out a little bit of some of the clouds. Right, I can't find a candle, but I can find a brush, so I'm going to have a play with that instead. I've never done this before, so let's just see what happens. Oh, well, that's cool. Try and use some of the softer edges at the top. As it fades back. There you go. Who knew? So that is literally the dish brush from the sink. So I'm just going to dry those off completely now. Strangers in the night, exchanging clothing. Let me think. It's nice, isn't it? Just gives it a sense of scale. Having what is obviously a big ship, but very small, makes it look vast. And I like the fact that it's kind of leaving the frame. I think it's got a bit of ambience about that. It's when you look close up, you can see it's ink, because it doesn't have any pigmentation. You know, it's dye, like I said before. So you get these lovely smooth transitions, these lovely smooth details, and there is a combination, as I was saying earlier, of some hard shapes and then maybe some softer shapes, and then the suggestion of the sort of waves on the sunny sea. And then this one, as I say, it's a bit more subtle. You can see in the top here, it's a much more subtle effect, but there's a few different tones in this ink. It's got a sort of slightly pink quality in some lights. Very beautiful. And then this interesting sea that I did with a scouring brush. So there you go. Interesting. So there you go. I mean, ink is pretty cool. I love it. I love it really it's great for play. I think it doesn't take itself quite as seriously as watercolours. But anyway, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. There's more to come. This is episode 3 or 4, stroke 5. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So the next one is, again, a little bit more advanced, a little bit different. Let me know how you think this is going in the comments. Give me a like, a thumbs up, costs you night. And obviously my patrons get bigger, chunkier meals. Your YouTubers, you're still getting fed, so you won't go hungry. But I'm just, as a little bit of an extra course for my my loyal patrons. Thank you, you know who you are. You're keeping the lights on. This one here, it's really bright. And yeah, so join me next time for yet another exciting installment of Big Daft Skies. See ya.